Hey, everybody, it's Congressman Jamie Raskin from Maryland's beautiful 8th Congressional District. Hello to all my wonderful constituents and friends across Maryland, across the country tuning in. Today, we've got a special Friday, March 7th episode of Local Hero here. My local hero is Dr. Lauren McGee, who was also my guest to the joint session of Congress this week, where President Trump arrived to describe the situation from his perspective. One of the things he said during that speech was that fighting childhood cancer is one of his administration's top priorities. And I want to get my guest, Lauren McGee's take on that. We didn't have a chance to talk about that that evening because I missed her after the address was over, but I almost fell out of my chair when I heard that because Lauren is a doctor, biologist, and was the lead biologist on a team working on a specific form of childhood cancer that she will describe to you. They were making great progress. She was promoted from her position as a postdoctoral student there working on the team to the lead biologist of the team. And because of the promotion, she was in a probationary status. Probation doesn't mean you did something bad. Probation in the civil service context means you've either just been hired or you've been promoted because of your superior work performance. And Dr. McGee has had nothing but excellent evaluations, and yet being in that probationary status made her vulnerable to the teen corruption fighters of DOGE working under Elon Musk, and she was sacked in the now famous Valentine's Day massacre, where by a memo they sent out to tens of thousands of probationary workers their notice that they were fired. So Lauren did not grow up in Maryland and comes to us from Michigan and had been here and had been loving her work and now is out of work, but she's part of a lawsuit to try to get her job back. But Lauren McGee, because of your toughness and your perseverance, because your story represents so many other stories throughout Maryland and throughout the country, you're our local hero. And I thought maybe you could start by describing the kind of work you had been doing, if you would, about osteosarcoma and the progress that you were making before all this happened.
Yes, thank you. And thank you again for inviting me. It's a huge honor. So what we had been doing prior to me leaving is I was in a lab that works on comparative oncology. So we work in a disease called osteosarcoma. It's a rare and aggressive form of bone cancer in the children, adolescent, young adult age groups. And treatment for them has largely plateaued for about 40 years now. We haven't had any great advances in treatment since about 1980. And so they're desperately in need of new treatments to help improve prognosis for these kids with cancer. And one of the ways we were going about doing that is using naturally occurring canine osteosarcoma in family dogs that is actually pretty comparable to the disease that develops in humans. And we can use the dog, again, family dogs, in clinical trials to try to develop and narrow in on new treatments that will help children with osteosarcoma. Because it's so rare, it's hard to get real robust clinical trials to identify therapeutics. So we were narrowing
You've
in.
had a lot of success with this method, right?
We've had some success. Some of the therapies have made it into human clinical trials, but like with any, all drug development and clinical trials, there's a lot of trial and error, but it's important to just being able to keep plugging away on our research, and every failure is a new advancement. And then when we do get our improved therapies, I'll say, it's a huge success. Yeah.
Well, compared to legislation these days, for example, you've shown me a lot of success. You showed me pictures of people whose lives were probably saved by therapies that you were able to come up with. And I know
Yeah.
nobody in the cancer field is satisfied until we just cure cancer and we end it. But in any event, you were doing very important work. So you got sacked because you were in that vulnerable probationary posture. You showed me the memo that you received, that February 14th memo. It did not come from your boss, right?
Tell her that I was fired.
It came from some individual working for Elon Musk and DOGE. It came from a DOGE person just telling you it was over. And this is after you've had superior evaluations in your work, and everybody is thrilled with the progress you've been making. That story is now being told thousands and thousands of times over by, you name it, air traffic controllers, food and drug safety inspectors, nuclear safety specialists, doctors, firefighters with the Forest Service. It's not like they're going to people's offices and saying, is there somebody here who's on some kind of remedial plan who's not doing well? No, they're just sacking people because they think they're vulnerable for some reason in the bureaucratic process, much less are they ferreting out any waste, fraud, and abuse and corruption? Were you charged with any waste, fraud, or abuse? I mean, it had nothing to do with that, right?
No,
So
yeah.
tell me what your reaction was, Lauren, because you were up in the gallery. I understand you were sitting near Elon Musk. That's where they seated you. Is that right? But what was your reaction when you heard the references to childhood cancer? And President Trump recognized a young man who had survived childhood cancer, but what was your reaction to that whole thing? I mean, I got up and clapped as a two-time cancer survivor myself. I thought it was important to applaud this young man. But meantime, there was like this level of deceit going on that was unbelievable, right?
Yeah, no, I absolutely applaud that cancer survivor who was in attendance. That's a incredibly hard thing to have to go through. And I'm so glad to hear that he was able to have an extension on his life. And that's what we're trying to research and help other kids in similar situations to expand their lives. And it seemed like there was a disconnect between what had been happening and what the reality is of those impacts. That by removing funding and researchers from the NIH, it's going to have a huge impact on children in the future who develop what that survivor had, or osteosarcoma, or any number of diseases, not even just pediatric. It's going to have a huge impact on all diseases.
You and I got to meet with some other members of Congress and their guests who were in a similar situation to you, people who had been sacked. There were some federal workers who had not been fired, but who were brought to demonstrate the fundamental importance of federal workers. I met a couple of air traffic controllers who were there. And of course, we had the first fatal air crash. I think it was 9 days into the new administration. We had the first fatal air crash in 17 years after they sacked the FAA director and the whole top coterie of officials there, and we've continued to have problems. But one of them said to me, you've got the richest guy in the world who, wants to be the world's first trillionaire, who's been empowered by a billionaire to go out there and sack people who make $70,000 or $80,000 a year for them and their families. And I wonder if that just adds insult to injury. I mean, I know you were brokenhearted to lose this position, which you described to me as a dream job, doing the work that you do with, incredible passion. Does it add insult to injury that you've got the richest guy in the world who's decided that your work is not worth it, or you're not worth doing it, even though you have, every A rating that could come in your office?
Yeah, it was certainly devastating to receive the news, but I think even more than any insult to me, it's an insult to the patients.
Yeah, it's like it's not important enough, this rare disease. And of course, this is happening not just in the rare disease departments. I mean, this is going on with lung cancer and breast cancer, colon cancer, um, cystic fibrosis and multiple sclerosis and sickle cell anemia. It's happening across the board, um, in lots of different ways. And sometimes it comes in the guise of, oh, you're just a probationary employee, we can get rid of you. Or, oh, you're really DEI, we're going to get rid of you. That's like the all-purpose excuse now for firing the workers. Or we're just going to do a RIF, a reduction in force. We don't need your whole part of the department. The good news is we've been winning in court in a lot of these cases. I don't want you to lose any hope, Lauren, because other probationary employees have been winning their jobs back, including at the Department of Agriculture. And you know, the courts have been finding, no, you can't engage in what's really a reduction in force, just a mass firing, and claim that that's probationary, you know, it's probationary employees. You've got to give people their rights under the reduction in force rules, because, you know, one of those is that veterans have to be protected. The federal workforce is 30% veterans. You know, Donald Trump seems blissfully unaware of the fact that 30% of the people they're firing, not just at the VA, and there have been tons of cuts over there, but across the federal workforce are veterans. But yeah, look, I want you to know that the people of the 8th District are behind you. We support you. We're going to be doing everything we can for you. We know you've got your own litigation. I don't want you to lose hope, because the courts have been doing the right thing. And the new administration, with its slash and burn philosophy, has already suffered more than 35 temporary restraining orders or preliminary injunctions, shutting them down on different things. And that's why President Trump is now trying to intimidate the lawyers and go after law firms like Perkins Coie to intimidate them, to make to drive their clients away and to make lawyers afraid of taking people's cases. But we are with you 1,000%, and we stand with you and other workers going through the same thing. And I don't know if you want to say anything else to people in your position, but you're our local hero, so you get the last word.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know what final words I would say other than just hang in there and hope we can reverse all of this and get, you know, back to work for the patients who rely on what we do. At least, yeah.
Well, the Republican leaders of Congress brought in Elon Musk to talk to their members, who are freaking out because their constituents are up in arms all over the country and just outraged. And their answer was, well, we'll give you Elon's number, and if there's somebody you really want to try to help, just give us a call and we'll do what we can. I want that number too. I want the same treatment for my constituents. That shouldn't just be for Republicans, because that just makes an indiscriminate, arbitrary purge of the workforce partisan too, if the Republicans are able to get jobs back for their constituents. So, Lauren, we're with you. We're going to turn this thing around in court. We're going to turn it around in Congress, and we're not going to rest. And we're going to try to reunite you with the work that you love. Hang tough, okay?